Well, welcome to today's Ask the Mayor program. We're certainly glad that you were able to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about the new downtown conference center that the city of Douglasville is actually almost in the process of getting started on that. And I have with me today to talk about a lot of the details that I know all of you are interested in about this conference center. First is Karin Callan. Ms. Callan is our finance director, and downtown service director is Ms. Marcia Hampton. And I know you guys see her all the time on TV. Her and Jeff have their own program, but she's here today to talk with us about the conference center. The conference center actually is one of the components that is in Ms. Hampton's department. So thank y'all very much for being here today. And maybe we could start. We're actually in the conference center today. We're filming in an area in the conference center. Maybe we could talk a little bit about how we actually built this conference center. And if my memory serves me correctly, it's been about a decade since we built this conference center, and actually it has been very successful.
That's right.
When we built it, you know, we all felt it was something that was needed for the city of Douglasville and Douglas County, and really the western part of the metro Atlanta area. That certainly has been true, I believe. There have been many events that I can remember over the years having here, and I know other people have also. But I wonder if you could share with our audience a little bit about how we got started on it and some of the details that they might not be familiar with.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you'll remember the previous tax structure that we were under, the 7% hotel motel tax required that we have a conference center open before December 31st of 2001. So that brought us here to this conference center, which, as you have mentioned, has been very successful for us. The one thing that I know yourself and the other council members, it was always known that we were going to outgrow this space. We probably, as you said many times, didn't realize how successful this space was going to be, but we knew we wanted to be in the convention market, and the current conference center has just not lended itself to that. When this was built and it opened, I came on board shortly thereafter, but I can remember during the times when there is not a Saturday for almost 2 years out. The wedding business was that successful. When the doors opened in 2001, of course, we had Jennifer Bean, our conference center manager, who's been with us from day one, Carlos Underwood, who's the conference center supervisor, helped with operations. So they have really had their handfuls, and even continuing to this day as we operate this facility, really just as in one room. You can divide the room, but it doesn't really lend itself to a convention market.
Right.
It more serves itself just as a center, a banquet hall, but it does well. It serves itself for a banquet hall for those folks who are in the community, our civic groups. You can seat about 225 at round tables in here. We've had public meetings in here, just a variety of things. And over the course of those 10 years, it's been very successful. And I view that it will continue to serve its purpose here for those folks who like to utilize this facility.
Well, and I agree with you. And we're going to talk more in today's program about how this conference center was paid for and the hotel motel tax that helps pay for the debt service on a center like this. And actually, I remember when the legislation was passed that enabled the city of Douglasville. It started off as local legislation that our General Assembly members agreed to submit, and it became statewide legislation before it got voted on. And only the city of Douglasville and Athens, Clark County, they have a combined government, took advantage of that. And actually, I believe both of you have probably been in their conference center also. It's a beautiful building. They actually took their existing conference center.
That's correct.
And expanded it dramatically. And so both of those, that statewide legislation, it was open for a narrow window of time. Those two cities took advantage of it, and I think it served them very well. I'm glad we were able to do that.
And both cities did a renovation in the downtown area, so I think that that's a huge part. I mean, this building most folks remember it prior to, that it was not as it is today. And it's always a good thing when you can take advantage of an older building and turn it into something useful and have people flowing
Well,
in
and that's
out.
right. This was an old cotton warehouse.
Yes.
At one point in time. And I remember when we were actually doing the construction on it, that there were horseshoes and all kinds of things that were found uncovered as they were digging out the earth and everything. So there's a lot of history in this building, and I'm certainly glad that it served the public well. And we're going to talk a little bit more in today's program about what's actually going to happen in this center. Well, as we look at the existing structure, for those who probably are not familiar with it and maybe have not even been in here, let's talk a little bit about the existing center, the size, how we purchased it, and those kind of things, so the public will know what we're going from to the new conference center.
Right, and as I stated earlier, Mr. Mayor, we knew we would outgrow the space, so it was never the intention to hold conferences here. The way that this existing facility is set up, we pretty much have one ballroom that's divisible into two, and then we have a small meeting room, and off of the main ballroom is a warming kitchen. So that allows us to be able to have multiple caterers in this current facility. What it does not lend itself to, as many people have been to a variety of conventions for various purposes, you have breakout rooms that you can go to for one conference. We really can't do that here. And specifically what we can't do is have the kitchen service those rooms, because if you've been in the main ballroom, you have to go through the main ballroom to get to the kitchen. I mean, we've done a little bit of trickery over the course of the years of walking through the alley, being able to serve the small meeting room. But when you're looking at hosting a convention that has about 500 plus attendees, that really does not work.
Right.
And you really cannot cook in our kitchen. By code, you have to bring the food in. It's just really for warming, so you can't cook there. So the thought was, City Council got together, you'll remember, okay, we now know that we need to expand. What about the buildings adjacent to us? So we thought that it would be wise to go forth and to extend into the buildings next to us. We had gone through the master plan process in the downtown area, and it was said, hey, the downtown is the best location for this facility. It will provide a great anchor. We knew at that time Highway 92 would be relocating. We also knew at that time both the Sheriff's Department as well as the Public Safety Department would be relocating as well. So we knew we needed to find something that would generate foot traffic as well as public interest coming back and forth to the downtown area. Well, through the architectural process, once we started looking at what it was really going to cost to have all these buildings combined, it just was not going to be cost effective. And then, of course, during that course of time, the economy started to turn.
Right.
And we knew that that source of revenue that had streamed very fluently through hotel motel tax was starting to decrease just a little bit. So we started to look at alternative funding sources. And I know Karin is going to talk a little bit about those sources and what we looked at. The Conference Center Authority still owns the building. Actually, myself, communications are in one of those buildings. The annex, some people have rented that out. We do utilize that for meeting space. And then, of course, Best Bonding is in one of them, and they rent from the Conference Center Authority. So we have not abandoned those spaces. It's just the cost was going to exceed our budget, probably well even beyond what the dollar amount is for the new facility, because we were going to have to pretty much gut these buildings out and create new footings, and that was not going to be cost effective.
You mentioned the Conference Center Authority.
Correct.
The city and the legislation required various things, and one of those was we must have a citizen advisory panel. Correct. If you want to think of it that way. It's a Douglasville Conference Center Authority. Can you guys talk a little bit about that legislation that required that, and maybe talk a little bit about the members that have served, and some of them I believe have served since day one, is that correct?
I know Chairman Baker, as well as Greg Reel and Brenda Head. Those are three of the long-standing members who've been on that from the beginning, and typically they don't meet that often. And when we do get together, they laugh and joke about all the different projects and different things that were said to have taken place and how we finally gotten there. And then, of course, they're always like, are we actually really there? Because we've gone through several different projects. But those three have been there from the beginning. We also have Callie Boatwright, who is the president and CEO at the Chamber of Commerce. She is a newly appointed member. We have Randy McCluskey. He is a citizen marketing person who lives in the tributary area. And then we have Jeffrey Smyer, who's recently joined us as well, who is a new member. And then finally, to final out the membership is Willow Crook. She lives in the Douglasville area, and she is an employee at the International Convention Center in College Park. So she has that experience that she brings to the table.
So it's obvious that the Convention Center Authority is very knowledgeable of the decisions that they're making, have made good decisions all along, and of course everything that the city recommends has to be approved by this authority.
That's correct. There has to be, for us to remain in legal standing, a joint agreement between the City of Douglasville as well as the Conference Center Authority. And back in 2008, the Conference Center Authority signed an agreement to allow the City Council to seek architectural services and move forward with the seeking of a construction company. And there will be a meeting of the City Council as well as the Conference Center Authority to have a similar agreement to provide construction services. So those things have to be in place in order for us to have the funding and have the to be in the position to build the conference center.
Well, as we kind of close our discussion about the existing conference center, can we talk a little bit about how we paid for this conference center? And it is paid for.
That's correct.
And the Conference Center Authority has also paid for the drawings for the new conference center. They've also paid for the other buildings that they bought in anticipation of expanding this center as opposed to building a new center. Can you share with our audience, Ms. Callan, how we paid for this and how we're continuing to do the things that we do? And then later on we'll talk about how we're planning to finance the new conference center. And I think the key that the public is always concerned about is where the money's coming from. And the first thing that we do want to tell them is none of their property tax money and no sales tax money is used to operate the conference center.
Right, and again, like you said, there is no sales tax or property tax dollars funding the current conference center nor the future conference center. The funding sources for the current conference center was the 7% hotel motel tax that the city was authorized to collect. 3% goes for general purposes, 2% goes for tourism, and the other 2% goes towards the conference center. The conference center authority is allowed to issue revenue bonds, and the conference center authority issued a note payable in the amount of $1.2 million. Paid that back with the 2% hotel motel tax and activity fees. So the 2% that is allocated to the conference center and the rentals of the conference center pay the operating costs and the debt service. So again, there are no property tax dollars or sales tax dollars associated with this.
So it's been good for our community.
Very good.
Those folks that are traveling and staying in the hotels. And that's not uncommon. When you travel really around the country, anywhere, it doesn't matter, but especially here in Georgia, if you go to Savannah, you go to any of the other cities that have conference centers, there is on your hotel room, there is a conference center fee usually attached to it. But it's much larger. For example, if you go to Savannah than it is here. I don't remember what it is, 12, 16%?
I think 12%.
12%. It's pretty high. But they got a big conference center, so and we utilize it a lot. But it's good that the public knows that their tax dollars are not used to fund and operate the conference center, but it certainly is a benefit to all of us who live here. Well, as we close the discussion on talking about the existing conference center, it's exciting to start talking about and planning for the new conference center. And the Conference Center Authority, as I said earlier, has paid for the drawings and the architectural renderings and everything that we needed for the new conference center. The Conference Center Authority has approved all of that, and we are getting ready to actually start the process of building it. Now, this has been a long process, about 4 years, I believe, that the Conference Center Authority has been working toward expanding the facilities when they realized that we were turning away a lot of folks. There were a lot of opportunities for people to come to Douglasville and spend the night, stay for several days, stay in our hotels, visit our restaurants and shops and everything else that's in Douglasville, and that this center just really was not capable of doing that. So can you share with our audience some facts and figures and statistics and all the details that maybe got us to where we are today after the decision was made to look at other alternatives?
You know, one of the things, being in the conference center market, you know, we don't have the attitude that we think if we have the facility that it's automatically people are going to walk through the door.
Right.
We really don't believe that. We, Jennifer Bean, who is our conference center manager, belongs to a variety of different organizations and associations that she attends, and mainly the purpose is to attract the business to come here. We are very appreciative of all the local business that we get, but we know that there is a significant amount of business that is untapped that we actually are not able to attain because of the logistics of the existing conference center. Our plans for the future conference center are such that we have Randy Miles, who is our sales manager in our tourism department. Her primary job is to go out and to seek the buses that you see at the mall that just stop by on day trips that are traveling, whether they be a church group or senior group. She's primarily responsible for getting those buses here. They may sometimes stay overnight, sometimes they don't. But her membership in those organizations, she has built a relationship with the bus drivers, with the tour operators, to have them to come here. So that is a market that sometimes the public doesn't realize that's out there. You have that, including the convention market. Like I mentioned earlier, several people may be involved in a variety of different associations. Maybe it's with their church, maybe it's with their profession, but they have opportunities to go to conferences, and they're right here in small towns and areas just like ours. So they're not just in the Savannas. You have several different organizations who are looking for more affordable cities that have to offer just the same type of conveniences that a Savannah would have to offer, but you don't have to pay that 14%. And the food is a little bit cheaper, and you don't have to pay for parking. So those are the things that we will be able to offer to those conference center markets with the new conference. I know when the doors open, hopefully we're talking about the doors opening for the Christmas season of next year, we will begin working marketing toward the end of this year. Those conferences and those events, they send out requests for proposals for those conferences 2 years in advance. So if we were to start next summer, we'd actually be behind the curve.
Right.
We actually have to start now. We've actually started receiving several of those conference center packets, so that's how we are able to anticipate the type of business that we're trying to receive. So we're on the front end. As I said, we have staff that are involved in a variety of different associations. We have the advantage of knowing what the conference center is going to look like. We actually planned the design of the conference center specifically to the type of business that we knew we would be able to generate. And those are based on requests. Those are based on market experience that we're already doing. It's not based on, we didn't dream it up. It's not based on that. That would not be a wise decision to make, but it is specifically based upon the request, the associations that we're involved in, and a realistic view of who actually would come to Douglasville. We are not under any idea that we're going to have some great large concert that's going to come to Douglasville, but it's not unrealistic to say that, for instance, a small church who has a regional association would not be here. That's very realistic, especially considering our proximity to the airport. It's not unrealistic to think that a medical conference wouldn't be here. Those are the types of things that we're looking for, and we know that we have the hotel prices to accommodate that, as well as the proximity to the airport and to Atlanta.
Well, and you know, one of the things that's important now to our city, to our state, and really all around the country are jobs.
Correct.
And actually the hotel motel tax that's collected will generate, this conference center will generate a lot of activity,
Yes.
a lot of folks coming to town, which relates to jobs in those hotels,
Yes.
which relates to jobs working in the conference center, which relates to jobs working in the stores that folks are going to shop in, which relates to jobs working in the restaurants that they're going to eat in. So the byproduct of what we're doing, in addition to serving the public's need, is actually generating an economy that hopefully is going to put some people back to work.
Yes.
And today that's important. It's important around the country. But also the other thing that the City Council and the Conference Center Authority and you guys helped us look at is how do we continue to keep downtown growing. Downtowns, you know, I associate it to having a horse. And I've never owned a horse, but people tell me you have to constantly feed the horse all the time. And a downtown, and you know, it's similar. You always have to be thinking about your downtown. You have to be aware of the needs of the downtown and how you can continue to feed the horse to keep it alive.
That's right.
And one of the situations that we were facing in this downtown area is we have new businesses that moved in. But if you look at the employment centers that have moved out, starting with the county courthouse several years ago, was just down the street in the downtown area, and of course they're now over on Hospital Drive. The city of Douglasville's police facility, because of their space requirements, there was nothing available in the downtown area that would work for them, and they're on a 23-acre site that is out of the central downtown business district. And we all know the new jail and law enforcement center for the county is under construction and will be moving soon as the building is finished. And what I've said several times is, with the things that are moving out, unless we continue to feed the horse, then you're going to have tumbleweeds basically blowing down the street.
Right.
Now that may be a little bit of over dramatization of what would really happen, but without people coming to the downtown area, no downtown can survive. And because of what had happened to our downtown, this is more important than it would have been, I think, had all of those employment centers stayed in the downtown area. But one of the things that we've talked about already is how we paid for this conference center and how it operated, and we're almost ready to start building the new one. Can we focus our attention a little bit on what kind of financial package that you put together, and you had a pro forma and all kinds of statistical information that you use? Can you discuss with the public some of those things?
Sure. Yes, Marcia and I worked very close together in projecting our numbers for the new conference center. And her and Jennifer Bean had some statistical data that they pulled from on the amount of rentals that they have, their typical customers, when they rent, the turnaways that they have. They came up with a very good number on their projections. So one of the revenue sources would be the rental activities for the new conference center. Also, this past legislative session, there was an additional 1% hotel motel tax approved that the city could collect. So that would increase from 7% to 8%.
And that was for downtown economic development.
Right, and that is for downtown economic development. So with our current 8% that we have, we will allocate 4.2% to pay the operating cost and debt service of the new conference center, and that covers about 50% of our operating cost.
Okay.
So we have that in addition to the rental activity and the management fees that the conference center will be getting.
So just like this conference center we're in today, the new conference center is self-supporting.
Yes, it is.
You were going to say something,
Yeah,
Marcia? I'm sorry. I was getting ready to ask you another question.
I was just going to say to add to Karen, and based on Jennifer and ours numbers, they're based on what we actually do today, as well as we have gone to other cities who have facilities that are very similar in size to what we're currently getting ready to build. Those cities are currently similar to ours. Cartersville will be one. Population is very similar. We're both located off of a major interstate. And they have a conference center that's been in operation about a year. That's 55,000 square feet. So we closely monitor facilities like that to make certain that our numbers are in line, that we're not way out of whack, that we're not overachieving, but that we are really almost very conservative with our numbers, because one of the things we don't want to do is to assume that we're going to be overly producing when we may not.
Right.
But in order to kind of stay middle of the road, and if we come out and if we do well, the better for the city of Douglasville, but we definitely want to make certain that we keep an eye on those projections.
Okay, well, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about the location, where we're going to put it, and then talk a little bit about what the new conference center is going to look like. I think we also will have some architectural renderings and things that we can show. But the site that was selected is the city parking lot directly across from City Hall and the current conference center. And I know that the first thing that the public and everyone else asked, well, if you build a conference center in that parking lot, and of course it takes a little bit more property than the parking lot. The dental office that was in the, I guess that's the southeast corner of the parking lot. The city bought that building. The Conference Center Authority bought that building. And then there's the old municipal court building and a little evidence storage building behind that. All of those buildings will be torn down, and that is the footprint for the new conference center. But the first thing that pops in everyone's mind is, where are we going to park when we come down? So the plans are finished. If we could share with the public a little bit about what they can expect with respect to parking.
Well, what they can expect is that they won't be able to park in the city parking lot
while it's under construction.
While it's under construction. But we have Hardin Construction, who is the construction company, has promised to release the parking deck a little bit earlier, somewhere around the 9-month period. But prior to that, there will be all of the on-street parking that's always been available. That's including the parking on Broad Street, on Church Streets, any of the streets in between. Those will be available as always. We are asking, for instance, the restaurants who are on Broad Street, specifically Gumbo's and the Irish Bread Pub, if they direct their customers to park on Broad Street, and possibly Gumbo's to have their customers to park on Courthouse Square East and West around the courthouse. It's a very close proximity, very similar to what they would be walking from the city parking lot. Both the Chamber of Commerce and Regions Bank, as well as the Masonic Lodge, have been very cooperative and have indicated to us that in the evenings and on the weekends that we are free to utilize their parking, to make certain that customers know that that will be available. And those parking lots are really not that far as well. I know the perception is it's a lot further, but it's not. We've done the walking. It really is not that bad. And really, in the city parking lot, when you look at what we're eliminating, we're only eliminating 133 spaces. But what myself, Stephanie Elworth, our Main Street manager, and Greg Roberts were able to do is to walk around the downtown, take photographs, and we have some of those photographs during prime time, during lunch, during the week, when there are underutilized spaces. And all those spaces, including Courthouse Square East and West, the old former Bank of America building parking lot, DFB Mortgage, Regions Bank, all along the street, there's pretty much hardly any cars parked there. Right. So we did that for several days to make certain it wasn't a fluke. We did it around lunch. We drove around right at 5, between 5 and 6 around dinner time when people are out for dinner. There's some, a little bit of crowding around on the weekends on Friday evening and Saturday, but even still, many of those spaces were still open. But with the help of Regions Bank, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Masons, I think we will be able to make that work without a problem. My office will have maps. If anybody is interested in any maps, we probably can have a indication up of a sign that we'll have. It'll be a very simple sign. It'll be a huge P. That's it's written in white, and the background will be blue. Everywhere that you see that P will be available parking that you can park, and you will be able to pick up maps from my office and from any of the restaurants and any of the businesses. They will have those maps available as well. We hope that it'll only maybe take a week or two for folks to say, okay, just a minor inconvenience. But in the meantime, specifically the restaurants, they will reap the benefits of all of those construction workers working here day in and day out, and being able to eat lunch there and eat in the evening. So we hope that the minor inconvenience will actually be prosperous for many of our businesses.
Well, and that's great. And what we're talking about now is just during the construction period.
Correct.
And you have a website
Yes, we do.
Folks will be able to go to and print the maps that you've drawn, or they can call your office.
That's correct.
And get that information. But then, once the conference center is finished, there is a parking garage attached to that conference center.
That is correct. So all of the parking we just talked about, excluding the private businesses, we want to allow them to go back to their main operation. And now the city will have an additional 160 plus spaces, because the parking garage will hold 300 cars. There will not be a charge. The council has made the decision that we will not charge for parking. I know that's been a question that has been asked. You will be able to utilize the parking garage if you want. You can continue to use the on-street parking, but in addition to a conference center, the city is adding about 160 plus spaces to what we currently have, which will be huge.
Well, we've talked about the old conference center, we've talked about the construction period and what's going to happen. And so now let's turn our attention to what the new conference center is going to look like, what's going to be in the new conference center, and what folks can expect. By the way, the council has authorized me to sign the construction contract, or the contract, and they're working on the contract now. So we should, hopefully by midweek next week, we should have that contract signed, and we should see activity across the street. But, and I think am I correct that the date to have it finished was?
The date to have the conference center finish is going to be October of 2012.
Before the Christmas season.
Before the Christmas season. So we will be gearing up for that, and I can promise you by spring of next 12, we will have something booked.
Okay.
To put the pressure on.
So, let's tell the public what it's going to look like. What's going to be inside.
The conference center will have a 7,500 plus square foot ballroom. The ballroom will be able to seat 560 people. If people are wondering what that means, that actually is twice the size of the existing ballroom that we currently have in the current conference center. That ballroom will be divisible 5 times. So there are a variety of different ways you can divide it up if you're looking for that space. It will also have 3 different breakout meeting spaces that can seat, one of the meeting spaces can seat up to about 125. So if you have an event and you're looking for a smaller space, not the ballroom, you will be able to utilize that space. The smallest space will be able to seat 75. We will also have an auditorium where the council has indicated that they would like to meet during their council meetings. That auditorium will be able to seat 150. It will also have a dedicated entrance from the outside, so if there's a council meeting going on, it won't disturb anything that's going on in the existing conference center. There's a boardroom that will be able to be rented, as well as a groom's room and a bride's room for those folks who are getting married and looking for that space to get dressed. For the wedding business, we can accommodate 2 weddings at once, because each different section of the ballroom has its own different pre-function space. So for instance, if the main bride wants to have her pre-function space right off of Church Street, she can pull her limo up and enter from that area. The second bride will have her pre-function space, and she will be able to pull up there, and those weddings will be uninterrupted. And they both can be going on at the same time in the ballroom. We have soundproofing. You will not be able to hear one another. We worked hard on that. And then there are photo opportunities all around the conference center, including the clock tower, which will be a first for us here in Douglasville. We don't have a clock tower.
That's
so
right.
We will get a clock tower. You will be able to take photographs there. It will be right on the corner of Church and Price Avenue. It will be a very nice photo opportunity. And then the rear patio of the ballroom, which faces the residential area, will be a balcony and cascading stairs that are going to drop off right at Price Avenue. And I think that's going to make the residents happy. We did change the design a little bit from what was originally produced. There were 2 stairs, now we will only have 1, but the square footage that's out there will be about 1,200 square feet. So it's a nice area that you can sit out in the evenings, and one of the things the residents had requested was to have a softer feel that faced the residential area. So I think that this is going to be very appropriate for them when they're looking out of their windows for what they can see. So it'll be very nice, and not to mention a full service kitchen. So we will have a house caterer. I know there have been a lot of questions about that, but overall, in order to be able to provide the level of customer service that I know the city is looking for, we will go forward with having a contract with an individual caterer for a certain period of time that the council deems, and that person will provide catering services for the entire facility. For those folks who are looking to bring in their own caterer, we're going to recommend that they use the existing conference center.
The conference center we're in today.
That's correct.
Will still be in operation after the new one opens and operating just like it does.
That is correct.
Great.
So there's opportunity. We will have opportunity for everybody, for everything.
Well, it's certainly exciting. I look forward to coming back. I'll be coming back to visit you at the end of 2012 because I'll no longer be in office, but I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that finished, and I'm certainly glad that we were able to get, after 4 years of planning for this, we were able to finally get to a point where we can pay for it without any taxpayer money and provide a real benefit for our downtown area and our entire community.
Definitely.
Well, now as we start the construction on our conference center, we certainly need to have a groundbreaking, and I know the city will. We do for all of the new public buildings that are going to go under construction. Have we finalized the plans on when and where that's going to be?
Well, we have selected a date and a time. It'll be, we will have a reception here in the existing conference center. The groundbreaking, of course, will be on the construction site. We will do that in conjunction with Hardin Construction.
Well, that's great, and we certainly do hope that the public joins us for this very historic occasion. First time we've had a conference center like this in really the western part of the metro Atlanta area.
That's right.
Well, thank y'all very much for joining me on today's Ask the Mayor program. I appreciate all the hard work that both of you and your staffs have done to help us get to this point. And thank you for joining us on today's Ask the Mayor program.